Welcome to Restorative Yoga, where we get to wind down a bit more. We're still gonna move, we're still gonna stretch. We're just gonna take some longer moments. Now that we've worked and wiggled, we're down on our floor, on our back sides. And it's a different plane, right? You can imagine that you're just standing, but you're on your backside. So your floor is now your standing wall, if you will. So take a bend into your knees and plant the feet onto the mat, and then just take a couple of windshield wipers left and right. Let's just do something that we know fairly well, something that feels familiar to you. So you can go your pace. You can go and pause on one side or the other. And you're going to sense how your body is feeling now that you've had a little bit of time to sit with your practice. You don't have to even think too much about this. You know how windshield wipers work. They just knees sway side to side. You're noticing your hips, your pelvis. You're noticing your long, beautiful spine. And even how your shoulders might even move a little in you shifting your knees, because it's all connected. We're going to take a little lift of the feet off of the mat and bring the knees tucked towards the chest. Give them a hug, a roll. You can either give the knees a really good squeeze, or you can keep to rocking a little bit. This is one of my favorite go-tos when my lower back is just not loving me today. Feels nice to give a good squeeze to the knees, but also pushing out with the knees into the palms. That feels pretty amazing as well for me. I hope it does for you. And you're going to draw your knees back towards your chest, and you're going to hold them there without your hands. Your hands and arms are going to come to your sides, palms down. So it might be like a downward V shape or a T if you like a T. Just find where it feels like your arms are helping to support you right now, because we're going to let the twists with the knees happen without moving the upper body. So get your grounding down through your arms, through your palms, through the backs or the fronts of your arms, depending if your palms are up or down. And then let the knees fall just a little to your right. We're sort of testing the water here. So they're just shifting a little to the side. Not very far. Even if you think you can go all the way to the floor, just, give a little twisty first. And then slowly, as you work to center, you'll start to let the knees fall a little bit to the opposite side. And you'll take this slow shift and rock from left to right, right to left. You might build up how big your twist is, or you might stay with this very few degree shift to each side. But I'd like to suggest you take it nice and slow, so you can be very thoughtful about what is shifting, what core, belly, and back muscles are supporting this motion. If you get to feeling a little fatigued from shifting left and right, you can always just pause and center for a moment, because this isn't about like how many abs can I create right now. This is about, can I notice those muscles? Can I even feel them moving? Supporting my spine all the way from the front to the sides to the back. You can take a few more gentle twists. Pause at the center. Or if you want to increase a little bit of your workload, then the knees will work further away from your chest and your face. If you want less workload, they're going to stay tucked in right by your body. Eventually, when you come back to center, you're going to place the feet back down onto the mat. And then as best as you can, because I know we all have these beautiful sticky mats, you're just going to let them slide out and long. So the feet slide as best that they can along the mat so that you get long legs. And then take a little rock with your left and your right pelvis, what we commonly call our hips. Let them rock and shift a little side to side. So you'll feel like your lower spine move a little. Your toes might shift and point left and right as you do that. Yeah, perfect. If your body senses it enjoys shifting to one side or the other, don't hesitate to pause there. All right. You can leave your legs long if you prefer. If you decide at some point you want to bend back into the knees and plant the feet, you can do that. But we're going to work a little into the shoulders for a couple of moments. So if your legs splay out, they don't have to be, directly straight line from your hips. That's fine too. And we're going to take a couple of reaches with the arms. So as if you're creating like zombie arms, straight fingers towards the ceiling, and then they will fall overhead. So the backs of the palms are over your head. Yep, perfect. And then you'll take your way back to your sides. So reach the fingertips towards the ceiling and then back down to your sides. And then take your time for the next couple of rounds, focusing on I'm going to drag my arms up towards the sky. I'm going to slowly lower them overhead. And don't be mindful of what's going on with elbows or wrists or fingers. Notice your shoulders mostly. Draw your attention to how your shoulders are moving and shifting. So right where your upper arm bone connects into your body, maybe you can sense your shoulder blade even shifting. Are there other muscles that are helping? Maybe you notice like your upper shoulders, your trap area really squeezing and working overtime. Can you soften there? And then the next time that you reach your arms overhead, you're going to let them rest down on the ground. So they don't have to be straight armed and straight overhead. You can take a big soft bend in the elbows, whatever allows you to bring the backs of your arms and palms up to the mat. So you can have palms close to each other, big bend in the elbows. You can be wide palmed and armed, but give yourself a moment to rest, sort of like you're just splayed out on a beach towel somewhere. And then notice the fronts of your ribs for a minute. And draw your attention to the bottom front ribs. So right underneath your heart, where the soft part of your belly begins, just below the ribs. And then give a little tuck there, like you're trying to press the front bottom ribs towards the ground. And then you can soften and the chest will rise a little. And then draw that same place back down towards the mat. So you might feel a lengthening of the spine. You can feel the back ribs pushing into the floor. And then soften again. And do that a couple more times where you feel that little bit of articulation in the low part of your ribs as the back ribs press in and the front ribs draw down. See if you can notice how that's connected to your shoulders. Some of you might find that the shoulders shift a little, the palms move a little. And then let go of that shifting of the ribs. You can move the arms if you would like. Instead of being overhead, they might come to a T or back to your sides. Or we're coming to a more splayed out little rest state here. So find what's cozy for you on your backside for a moment. And check in for a round of breaths. Some inhales and exhales. Check in with your body head to toe. Notice what's weighted down into the floor. Notice what
Oh. Yay! Volume.
I'm sorry, guys. You guys are just like, how long are we gonna rock and roll? All right. Technicalities, it's normal life, right? All right, so you're on your back side, and we're gonna roll onto your right side. That's where we're going with. Started to see the like faces, like, what was happening? Did she stop talking or? So find your tuck onto your right side. Doesn't matter if your hips are stacked or your knees are stacked or if your big toes touch. You're just gonna find a nice little side saddle here. So if you have extra props, this is nice moment to either throw your arm under your head or a pillow or whatever you've got, or nothing. It's up to you. And we're gonna roll around in that top shoulder a little bit. So any which direction that you want. You can circle around. If you already know I've got a little hitch here or there, you might go directly for that. I just love when my arm reaches behind you or overhead. You don't have to keep moving. You're welcome to find stillness in a little lengthy stretch. Shoulders just don't get enough love throughout our day. Some really simple ways to do this is if you're at your desk, if you're about your house, just reach up towards the ceiling or reach back behind you. Real easy ways to just change the orientation of your shoulder a couple times a day. You're going to work yourself back towards your stillness on your side. Settle in for a moment, slow it down again, take a breath or two here. We're still moving, but we are trying to slow the pace, slow the heart rate. Just be more mindful of how simply wiggling your arm around echoes down to your shoulder, to your ribs, other places. And as you roll from your side to your back, take a real lollygag kind of adventure way. Like maybe you just reach your arm behind you and then your shoulders start to roll. And maybe the hips follow, or maybe the hips and knees went first. And if you feel uncentered when you get back to your backside, then recenter yourself. Take a moment to settle into the hips and the back. And then with love and care, you roll on to your second side. And without thinking too much about where did my hips land, if my knees are together, do I want to tuck a foot behind me, just come onto your cozy side. And when you're ready, you'll arm circle or wiggle through the shoulders or reach up and out and around. Notice the novelty in just moving without having to think about the motion. There's no particular way of pointing any one piece of your body. You're just letting it wiggle. And then allow yourself some time to be still on your side, where you find your breath, where you get to be curious about how your shoulder movement was reflected all the way down, maybe even to your hips or your feet. When you come to your back, same. You're gonna find a real slow reach, either starting with shoulders or letting it start with knees and hips. Kind of flopping over, finding your way back to your center. And you're going to settle in once again on your backside, whether that's complete stillness, long-legged and armed or bent kneed. Or if you still feel like you need to wiggle a little, then go for it. For some people, it takes that burning off of that bit of energy to finally come to some quiet. And some days you just can lay down and be ready for a rest. If your legs are long, you're gonna bend back into your knees and plant the feet onto the mat. And we're gonna take a couple of subtle bridge lifts. So think about where your feet are. Do you like the width of them? Do you need it to be a little bit further away from your bum, a little bit more close to your bum? You can always adjust this and play around. And I recommend that you do. You play around with where the feet are, because it's going to change the dynamic of the backside of the body as you give a little tuck to the tailbone dig the heels into the mat slightly, and then start with a small lift of the hips towards the ceiling. So left and right hip are just going to reach up a little bit off the floor. And then you can set those hips and the bottom back down. You might choose to move feet or hands. Be curious. I always have my hands at my sides. What happens if I move them here? What happens if I reach overhead? I don't know. Find out. You're going to go into another lift, either the same little cute tuck tailbone and a few inches off the ground, your bum rises, or if you'd like, you can build to a little bit higher height. However high you went, you're going to take an easeful way back down towards the mat. So you'll slowly roll it down. Maybe you absorb, I moved my feet, I moved my hands. Did I like that? Do I want to change them again? Do I want to be curious? Continue to move and shift. And then when you lift again, decide if you want the same little lift or if you want to build a little bit higher. It might change because you changed where your feet are. Recognize how that dynamic even works. Well, I just moved my feet, I just moved my hands, and now I can lift higher, or I can't lift as high. I'll take a slow little roll back down, vertebra, back ribs, hips and bottom to your mat. And then we're going to take a couple of rounds of this on your own. So you explored a lot of options. I've seen your feet move, your arms move, your hips move. Some have reached high. Some have taken a little lift. It's up to you where you want to lift, shift, move. It can be directed towards curiosity, or it can be to target something specific. Maybe it piqued your interest that it felt great to be in this particular position. I'll take a couple more lifts if you want to stay in this subtle little place. It's a great spot to be. You can also change any part that is lifted, that is seated. And if you still happen to be lifted, you can come back down to your bottom. If you're, some of you are working kind of an up and down little oscillation, then come to your stillness. And then notice if anything has changed. I know that we just did these little bridges and you made all your own choices, but has there been any shift and change in how the calves feel, the hamstrings, the low back, or even your shoulders? Our next place is going to be on our belly. So think about if you simply just want to roll onto your belly. You don't necessarily have to flip yourself around so that your head is facing me. These are real simple cues that we're going to be following on our front side. So just roll over and enjoy not having to see what's up on your screen. You can use your arms in any way you'd like to prop the head or the shoulders. You could have one cheek down and your arms are at your side. Explore this flipping over, this new direction that you're in. You're facing downwards towards the earth. What new points are now pressing into the floor, wading into the ground? And keeping most of your upper body, so think forehead, think chest, belly, and your left and right pelvis. So those two little bony points on your front side. Most of that is going to stay laying down on the floor, and just the legs are going to move as if you're kicking to swim. So just little flicks of the legs, almost like Mother Earth's kind of holding you up and teaching you to swim, and just the little legs get to kick for a moment. You can take slow, subtle little shifts, just a little baby lift of one leg, a set down, a baby lift of the second leg. You can have wider legs, more narrow legs. You can work to point through your toes a little bit more, or be soft through the calves and heels. You can lift and pause for a moment or two at any height. Start to notice more the back side of your body, from your heels to your hamstrings, anything you're sensing in your bottom or low back. And then you'll let the feet, the legs, all of it rest down onto the mat. And kind of similar to what we did on our backside, you're gonna let the shift of the hips, a little rock side to side. It's all right if your upper body starts to move again. If you're giving a little rock with the left and right hip, your spine will probably move too. And then take a bend into the knee so that the feet go up towards the ceiling. And then you're gonna let the feet rock side to side like windshield wipers. Yep. And don't be afraid to let the hips rock a lot, let the ribs go side to side too. You can even twirl around the feet a little bit, like they're circling around one another. Or you can just continue to let feet fall side to side. You can pause on one side. And when you're satisfied with all your little flicks and rocks and rolls, and you can return to your center and be long-legged. And we'll work a little bit into the upper spine. So now you're going to imagine that those same little bony hip points, the left and right, are going to stay a little bit more stable. Your thighs, your shins, your tops of your feet are all going to stay mostly stable into the floor. And you're going to take a slow peeling of your forehead, your chin, And maybe just your collarbones up off the mat. You can use any stability with the palms and the hands, or you can work up to lifting without having your palms and hands support you. You'll take a roll back down, imagining the sternum comes down, the collarbones, the chin, the forehead. And you'll take a couple more rounds of that where you slowly let from forehead to chin to collarbone and however much else lifts up. We'll take your rolls down. You can pause upward. It doesn't have to be a big upper body extension to feel nice. It can be real slight. Maybe you need a bigger lift to feel the backside extend. You might try challenging yourself a little by keeping the chin tucked and then rolling up, instead of looking forward and up and then lifting the back. So you'll keep the face more downward towards the floor than lifted. Yeah, good. That's a little different, right? We're only going to do this for another moment or two, so it's up to you if you want to rest or if you want to take a lift or two without the support of your palms or your arms. And then you'll bring yourself back down to a rest, and you can either bring your forehead down, you could choose a left or right cheek. But you'll ground back down into the floor with whatever is touching. Tops of feet, tops of thighs, your soft, beautiful bellies, maybe a part of your shoulders or something in your face. All touching and grounding. And see if you can sense the breath on the back body, those back ribs. Shifting, moving, maybe lifting towards the sky when you inhale. And softening down when you exhale. So finding your breath through the back body today instead of noticing how your chest is lifting or your heart. Find your back ribs and your spine. May even give more force and energy to lifting and expanding those back ribs a little when you inhale. Really pushing the air in that direction. Even if it's just in your mind's eye. Envisioning it moving. A little massage for where your ribs connect to your spine. And start to envision where you want to find your final rest. Is it going to be maybe in the position you're already in? Maybe you'd like to turn to a side, prop yourself up with the pillows and the blankets or anything else you brought to the mat with you. Or maybe it feels more comfortable to be on your back, long-legged or knees bent. As your final moments of your practice, your one effort, your one bit of work is exactly the opposite of that. Soften into any muscle that's holding on to a little grip, a little tension. Start to feel heavier in your bones and your bodies, like you're drifting off into your final sleep for the day. But staying a little bit more active in the mind so that you can draw that awareness inward, so that you not only notice how the outside, your shell feels, but you're starting to notice the more subtle layers, how the bones and the tissues feel, how your current of breath now feels. That little line of energy has now finally settled in and settled down. Wherever you've landed is a perfect place to be for the next couple of moments, where you're going to take your rest for as long as you're able. If today you feel like this rest could go forever, stick with it. If it feels a little bit of a struggle still, then maybe you still stick with it. Being gentle and kind to yourself in all thoughts. As I leave you all to enjoy your final moments of your practice on your own. Hope you all have a restful few moments and a great rest of your evening.